On the hotel's second floor, Supervisor Bob Winson was on his night shift, doing what night shift supervisors do, walking the corridors, checking doors, and trying not to think about how quiet everything sounded. Suddenly, something caught his eye. A strange, odd-looking machine sitting in the middle of the hallway, a machine that definitely had not been there a little while ago. Bob blinked and rubbed his eyes. Had the carpet grown a machine overnight? That thought would have been funny if the machine did not look so serious. This hotel floor was supposed to be for employees only, a quiet place where staff could move without guests around. Seeing that weird contraption in the dead of night gave Bob a cold, prickly feeling. It was a metallic box, and another smaller box was connected on top of it. The front looked like a control panel straight out of a science fiction movie. The control panel had a total of 28 switchable keys. 23 of those switches were set in a particular way. By then, the clock read 6:30 in the morning, and the whole scene felt unreal. This event took place at the Harvey Lake Tahoe Hotel and Casino in Nevada, a place that, over the next 24 hours, would explode into national headlines. For Bob Winson, the bizarre machine was not the only strange thing. He had been on duty almost the whole night, and he was certain he had not heard anyone carrying anything down the hallway. Whoever had left the machine had carefully placed it on 4 wooden blocks. The blocks were pressed into the corridor carpet, which meant that the thing was heavy, heavier than it looked. Even stranger, someone had rendered several door locks useless by gluing them shut with superglue around the area where the machine had been placed. It looked planned, clever, and a little cruel. As Bob stood there puzzling, he noticed an envelope lying right beside the machine. The envelope had been clearly addressed to the hotel management. His heart sped up. Who leaves an envelope next to a mysterious machine in a quiet, employee-only corridor at 6:30 in the morning? Bob ran straight for the security office. Within minutes, alarms were sounding, and both police and the fire department were called. At first, no one wanted to touch the envelope. What if it was a trap? What if it was linked to the machine? Finally, someone used a broom to nudge the envelope gently and move it closer. They opened it very carefully. Inside were 3 pages, typed on a typewriter. The bold headline at the top read, "Warning for Hotel Management and Bomb Squad." The typed message beneath it was chilling and very precise. It said not to try to move or shake the bomb. According to the letter, the device contained a mechanism so sensitive that even the smallest movement could detonate it within milliseconds. It warned not to pour water or gas into it because float switches were inside that could trigger an explosion if the internal air pressure changed. The screws on top were linked to a trigger. If any screw was turned even 25 times, the bomb would blow up. In plain words, the device was too delicate to tamper with. According to the note, there were 600 guests sleeping in their rooms at that moment. Police immediately began the long, tense job of evacuating the hotel. Guests were told to leave their rooms and assemble in the parking lot. The bomb squad was called in and, with extreme caution, began examining the machine. The experts found that the box was made from half-inch steel sheets, welded together with great precision. Where any marks remained, they had been smoothed down with what looked like car body filler to make the surface flawless. Bubble levels were attached to all 4 sides, as if someone had been obsessed with making sure the box remained perfectly level. These details suggested that the letter might not be a bluff. The typed letter also claimed that the bomb could not be turned off, even by the person who built it. It warned that an automatic timer could cause detonation within the next 24 hours unless the hotel management followed instructions that, for now, they had not released to anyone. Because the threat was so serious, law enforcement and the bomb squad refused to take any risky shortcuts. They searched the box for fingerprints but found none. Then they photographed it from every angle and ran an X-ray to see whether there was anything inside or whether the whole thing was a well-crafted trick. While the X-rays were being developed, technicians pressed a stethoscope to the steel casing. There was definitely something inside that made a sound, a steady, moving noise, like a small mechanism shifting or rolling. The letter claimed the box contained TNT. In one chilling line, it suggested that if the device exploded, the casinos across the road would suffer heavy damage too. The note advised officials to clear everyone from within a 1,200-foot radius. Police officers evacuated the nearby buildings and shut off the hotel's gas lines. Casino employees began quietly moving millions of dollars in cash to safer locations. FBI agents arrived quickly, and the situation spread like wildfire through every agency in the area. Everybody moved, every step deliberate, because they all understood. One tiny mistake here could become a terrible, unforgettable disaster. The hotel quickly transformed into an operation command and control center. Faces from the police, FBI, bomb squad, and fire department were pale and tight with concentration. Their expressions shouted that the situation was even more serious than it first appeared. The big question hanging over everyone was simple and frightening. Who would want this, and why? The typewritten letter had demands. It wanted $3 million in cash. The condition was strange and specific. The banknotes must be new, uncirculated bills with no markings and no chemical treatment of any kind. The letter warned that if anyone tried to trick the sender, they would not be given the method to defuse the bomb. If the demand were not met within 24 hours, the automatic timers would, the letter said, detonate the device on their own. Who, though, would receive the money, and how would the exchange take place? As the X-ray film developed, the grainy black-and-white image gave terrifying support to the letter's claims. The little control box attached to the machine showed wires connected to its screws, just as the letter had warned. A straight tube inside looked like a tilt sensor, and a float valve was visible where the note had mentioned one. The lower box was full of mysterious cylinders. At that moment, the police had no clear idea what those cylinders contained. One thing became perfectly clear to everyone. The letter writer was not playing any prank. This machine was a bomb, and the threat was real. Slowly, daylight crept closer and the 24-hour deadline ticked down. Under that pressure, authorities reluctantly prepared to comply with some of the demands. The 3-page letter had even included instructions for delivery. The money would arrive by helicopter. The pilot was told to land near the LTA building at Lake Tahoe Airport at exactly 11 o'clock at night, with the helicopter pointed south. After landing, the pilot would step out, stand near a public telephone booth, and wait for a call. The rest of the instructions would be given over that telephone call. The letter made one more demand. The helicopter could carry only the pilot, no guards, no passengers. To handle the transfer, the FBI staged what they believed was a controlled plan. They loaded $3 million into an aircraft. The twist was that the cash in that helicopter was fake, counterfeit bills. An undercover agent named Cook started the helicopter. Another agent was hidden behind the pilot's seat, armed and ready. The pilot followed the cryptic instructions down to the smallest detail. He landed at the designated place at exactly 11. He stepped out, stood near the phone booth, and waited. After a few seconds, the telephone rang. The pilot picked up. On the other end, a voice told him to lift the panel under the telephone booth and read a letter hidden there. Whoever was running the game was clever and cautious. They refused to speak on the line for long. Every extra second on the public phone increased the chances of being traced. The new letter was written specifically to the pilot. It told him to shine a flashlight inside the helicopter to show every corner, never to reveal the gunman, then to take off and fly toward Highway 50. Approximately 15 minutes later, he was to look to his right and find a strobe light in the woods. The instructions demanded that he land facing south near that strobe light, and there he would find another note hanging from a tree. The pilot followed the script carefully. He lit up the cockpit with a flashlight in such a way that the hidden gunman could not be seen, and he flew to the coordinates given. When he arrived, he saw nothing. No strobe, no light, no hint of a note. For the next hour he circled, searching, but the dark woods held their secrets. Finally, frustrated and tired, he returned to the airport and landed. Later investigations revealed that the original instructions had been misread, and the actual landing spot was miles away from where they had searched. Television news carried the story and the confusion. When the person behind the plan realized the authorities still intended to hand over the money, he called the police station and issued a new command. Set the bomb's switch number to 5 upward. Then wait for the next phone call. He may have been trying to buy time to create a different plan. That order to nudge a dummy switch upward was chilling. Someone was directing the situation from far away and changing the rules as they pleased. By then, it was around 6:30 in the morning, meaning the device had sat inside the hotel for more than 24 hours. Strangely and thankfully, the timer had not detonated. That tiny fact felt like a miracle to everyone watching. In the command center, teams from the FBI, the police, the bomb squad, and the fire department sat and calculated worst-case scenarios. Their rough estimate was that the box could contain at most 1,000 pounds of TNT. They ran numbers over and over, measuring potential damage. If the device exploded inside the hotel, could the building's pillars hold? The engineers decided that the greatest danger would likely be to the interior: flames, collapsing floors, ripped rooms, rather than a total collapse. Based on those assessments, they developed a risky but clever plan. Right beside the suspicious box, they positioned a smaller plastic explosive device accompanied by a control box. The idea was surgical: detonate the small plastic charge so that at the instant it exploded, the control unit would. The plan was daring but precise. If it worked, it would make the bomb harmless without ever opening it. The smaller plastic explosive placed beside the mysterious device was meant to destroy its control box completely, making it useless and hopefully preventing the TNT, or whatever was inside, from detonating. Every detail had been checked and double-checked. Surrounding buildings had been cleared, streets were sealed off, and the bomb squad stood ready at a safe distance. It was August 27th, 3:45 in the afternoon. A massive crowd stood nearly a kilometer away, watching anxiously. Cameras from news outlets pointed toward the hotel, broadcasting the tense moment live across the nation. You could almost feel everyone holding their breath. Then, through the radio speaker came the call: "Fire in the hole." The command was given. A technician pressed the remote control button. A split second later, a thunderous sound tore through the air. The corridor shook violently as the machine detonated. But to everyone's surprise and relief, the explosion wasn't as massive as feared. Later analysis revealed that the letter had lied. Inside the box wasn't TNT at all, but dynamite, which, although deadly, produces a much smaller blast compared to TNT. The question still hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. Who had built and planted such a bomb? Investigators soon uncovered the truth. The man behind the Harvey Hotel and Casino bomb plot was 58-year-old John Burgess. Even more shocking, his two sons had helped him carry out the entire plan. John had lost his entire life savings gambling at the very same casino. Broken and bitter, he decided to take revenge on the hotel that had taken everything from him. What he planned wasn't just a threat, it was a full-scale heist. Investigators later learned that his real goal was to steal the helicopter along with the ransom cash. If the pilot had followed the fake instructions correctly and landed in the forest, he would have stepped out to find the second letter. At that very moment, John's sons would have jumped in, taken control of the helicopter, and escaped to a secret location where they had already parked their getaway vehicle. But fate had other plans. The mix-up in instructions, the cautious FBI maneuvers, and perhaps a touch of luck. All of it prevented the heist from succeeding. In the end, justice caught up. John Burgess was sentenced to 20 years in prison, while his sons were granted leniency in exchange for cooperating with the police. Years later, in 1996, John Burgess died of liver cancer behind bars, closing the final chapter of one of Nevada's most shocking hotel bomb cases. After the incident, the Harvey Hotel's owner decided to start fresh. The building was completely renovated, redesigned with modern architecture, and expanded with more rooms. When it reopened, it stood not just as a symbol of luxury, but as a reminder of the chaos that had once shaken its walls. And with that, dear viewers, we reach the end of another incredible story. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and drop your kind comments below. Your support means the world to us. We'll see you again in the next thrilling episode on Information for All, where another fascinating real-life story awaits.